Hello, honeys, and welcome back. I apologize for the delays in this episode, as I will reference on an upcoming Instagram post. I recently passed by my 1 year graduation of my master's program. I still am struggling professionally, and that has been hard lately. I'll admit it, but I'm doing my best to get back on track with making sure we are still a timely and reliable podcast, doing our best there, and also to make sure we're providing constantly new entertainment. So expect to see a couple new things coming up in the next few months. And with that, moment of me being a human and also teaser trailer for you guys out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in. We've got actually several follow-ups to previous Bees-ness stories to get through today before we get to the new ones, so hold on tight. Here are your headlines. First up, last week, Spain officially unveiled its so-called lost Caravaggio, the Ecce Homo, that nearly sold only for 1,500 euros back in 2021 before the Spanish government halted the sale because they realized, oh wait, this is a Caravaggio, one of the most valuable pieces in the world. We're going to go ahead and keep that. Another former exhibition or thing in our Beesness headlines, the American Museum of Natural History has officially opened its Ice Cold exhibition of hip-hop jewelry and watches. It's receiving lots of praise not only for its unprecedented focus, but also for the clear thought and care put into every piece of jewelry that was chosen to be exhibited. The FBI also announced it will team up with the British Museum to help it track down its missing and stolen treasures by investigating their U.S. buyers. The BBC reports that U.S. law enforcement agency has also assisted with the return of 268 items, which the museum claims belong to it and were sold to a collector in Washington, D.C., after the British Museum announced last year that multiple items from its collection were either missing, stolen, or damaged. In one anecdotal story published by the BBC, a confirmed NOLA-based buyer told the outlet that the FBI agent emailed them asking for information about two pieces he had bought on eBay. 3 other buyers have said that a seller going by the screen name Sultan1966 presented himself as Paul Higgins or Paul on eBay or over email with them. According to court documents, the museum says Dr. Higgs admitted the account Sultan 1966 belonged to him, and this too was confirmed by the NOLA person. So why this is a big deal? First of all, it's just necessary, it's helpful. The British Museum says that of the 1,500 items it estimates are stolen or missing, only that 600 or so have been recovered and 100 more have been found but not yet brought back. Having a crime-focused agency like the FBI on board is also helpful because many of the items were actually uncatalogued. So the museum is still in the process of looking for ways to prove that many of them came from its collection. According to the BBC, this team-up allows the museum to start to narrow down the giant list of places that these items maybe ended up. The article notes that instances of purchases have been confirmed everywhere from Paris to Hamburg to Hong Kong. And last but not least, Christie's finally released details of what client data was compromised in last week's hack. The disclosure followed the claiming of responsibility for the cyber attack by a group called Ransom Hub, who threatened to release the data of nearly 500,000 clients of the company on the dark web. Christie's said Thursday that it had alerted the FBI and the British police about the cyber attack, and this is the first time they've given details on the consequences of the hacking. In fact, they've previously referred to it as a technology security incident. and attempted to calm anxious bidders with supplementary bidding websites and the like. Despite some major concerns being expressed by employees, according to Christie's email to its clients, no financial data and no data about recent sales activity was exposed, but instead some personal data may have been compromised. More specifically, says Christie's spokesperson Jessica Stanley Thursday morning, quote, "The personal identity data came from identification documents, for example, passports and driving licenses, provided as part of client ID checks, which Christie's is required to retain for compliance reasons," end quote. Now, the way I see it, if somebody has your passport, they have your entire identity. It doesn't really matter if they know your recent sales activity. But apparently everybody's relatively okay with this, as Christie's is still having a successful start to their summer season. We had lots of fascinating headlines in the institutional sense this past week. First up, dozens were arrested after a pro-Palestine demonstration at the Brooklyn Museum on Saturday. Hundreds swarmed the building to protest in Fort Greene's Barclay Center at about 4 p.m. before heading to the museum. 34, according to the NYPD, were taken into custody. CBS noted that video showed some protesters even scaled the building and unfurled a giant banner from the roof reading, "Free Palestine, divest from genocide." A quick note, the Brooklyn Museum itself did not call for the NYPD, although they did close for an hour out of an abundance of safety concerns. The police showed up on scene, then began clashing with protesters. In a statement to CBS New York, the museum said that existing and newly installed artwork on their plaza was damaged, and members of the museum's public safety staff were physically and verbally harassed as protesters entered, hence that temporary closure. This demonstration was organized by the same group that protested near the Met Gala back in May. Notably, this protest occurred the same day as Biden's most recent Israel ceasefire agreement. It also came ahead of the 60th annual Israel Day on 5th parade on Sunday, which CBS reports they have obtained internal threat assessments, saying the event may be, quote, "an attractive target for an act of mass violence or disruption," end quote. So, honeys, please be careful. No matter what you do, be careful. The Cleveland Museum of Art, in a joint statement with Libya's Department of Antiquities, announced that it will return a rare ancient icon to Libya on Wednesday. The statue in question is a 2,200-year-old Ptolemaic Dynasty-era basalt figure of a bearded man, taken from a museum now located in eastern Libya. It is considered so valuable because it's one of only 33 statues like it known to exist by Egyptologists. The main reason for its return is the relatively recent conclusion that it was most likely looted during World War II. It was originally found in a 1930s archaeological dig inside of an earthenware jar while excavating an ancient Greek palace in that area. It was placed in the nearby Ptolemais Museum, only to be stolen in the early 40s when that region became a war zone between the Italian and British forces. It briefly reappeared in Switzerland in the early 60s, and that led to it being acquired by an art dealer who donated it to the Cleveland Museum in 1991 on the museum's 75th anniversary. According to the New York Times, curators received abundant proof that the item was stolen, including pictures of it on display in the museum in the 1940s. It officially agreed to transfer the ownership to Libyan officials, and in turn, Libya is allowing the museum to keep it on loan. They believe this decision is the best option for all parties in terms of access more than ownership, says the curator of Greek and Roman art at the Cleveland Museum. Says the head of the Libyan Department of Antiquities, Mohammed Faraj, "We look forward to continued cooperation with the museum." We care about this story because the decision mirrors recent moves by some institutions to cede ownership of different items instead of arguing that they were looted in the first place. The article goes on to include quotes from experts like Katie Paul of the Altar Project, which investigates global antiquities trafficking, and she says that lack of proactivity, this simply ceding rather than looking into it in advance, is a problem. It is still an issue that too many museums are unwilling to act of their own volition and instead wait to be pressured by law enforcement. We also heard that a free Yayoi Kusama exhibition is coming to London later this year. The 93-year-old Japanese artist has had Instagram in a chokehold over the last few years. Her last UK exhibition of solely the so-called Infinity Mirror rooms at the Tate Modern sold out months in advance and was extended to last a total of 3 years due to overwhelming demand before it finally closed in April of this one. But now you will have a new chance to selfie. Kusama's newly announced exhibition will take place at the Victoria Miro Gallery later this year, running from September to November. It will be her 14th solo show at the North London Gallery, and it will feature brand new Infinity Mirror rooms, plus a new series of bright, wacky paintings and some new sculptures. Time Out quotes the gallery saying, "Created in a more intimate format, these paintings continue the artist's singular explorations of line and form," end quote. Tickets will be free, but they will go faster than you could possibly believe on the September 2nd release date, so if you want to go, mark your calendar now. We heard about a couple really interesting sales last week. First, we heard that a rare Bob Dylan painting sold at auction for nearly $200,000, and we also heard that John Lennon's guitar from the Help, I think that's a music video, I wasn't entirely clear, was sold for a record-breaking $2.9 million at auction. The sale was announced Friday of the painting, which was done in his Woodstock time and has its own fascinating history of sale or gifting. According to People magazine, he offered the painting to Woodstock area resident Sandy Lepanto in exchange for an astrology chart of her own making, as she was fascinated with mythologies. And they noted that the painting was in her family until a recent rediscovery of it by her former husband in his estate. The sale of Lennon's guitar is really fascinating because it broke the previous most expensive Beatles guitar sold at auction record, which was held by another one of Lennon's guitars, his J160E Gibson, which sold for $2.41 million in 2015. Says CEO of Julian's Auctions, David Goodman, in an Art News statement, quote, "We are absolutely thrilled and honored to have set a new world record with the sale of John Lennon's lost hootenanny guitar. This guitar is not only a piece of music history, but a symbol of John Lennon's enduring legacy," end quote. In other music-related news, a pretty exciting announcement. The world's rarest album is set to go on display later this year in Australia. The record in question is called Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. It was recorded in secret by the Wu-Tang Clan over a period of 6 years between New York City and Marrakesh, between 2006 and 2013. According to the BBC, the group began the project because they felt that the value of music had been cheapened by online streaming, piracy, wanted to, quote, take a 400-year-old Renaissance-style approach to music, offering it as a commissioned commodity, end quote. The album is housed in an ornate silver box designed to be in itself a piece of fine art, and it is the only existing copy of the CD. That price tag means it is the most expensive record ever sold. And we don't even know what the price tag is. It is going on loan to Tasmania's Museum of Old and New Art, The Mona, you may recognize that name from the Ladies Lounge Beesness stories, as part of its name-dropping exhibition, which will take place over 10 days in June, with small listening parties for members of the public to hear a curated 30-minute sample of the album. This sample style of listening is a sort of workaround for the legal condition of the album, that the owner cannot release the 31 tracks for 88 years after it was finished. And I had to bring up that legal clause because there's a further kind of fascinating little bit of history on it. The BBC noted that the disgraced jug firm executive Martin Shkreli bought the album for $2 million and then streamed clips of it on YouTube to celebrate Donald Trump's 2016 election victory. He later, as a specific result, was forced to hand it over to U.S. prosecutors in 2018 after being convicted of defrauding investors, and it was then sold to digital art collective Pleaser. Karma's a bitch. And to bring us home, last week a Sojourner Truth statue was unveiled at the famous site of her 1851 anti-woman speech. Born as Isabella Baumfree into slavery in or around 1797 in the Hudson Valley, NBC reminds us that she is believed to be the first black woman to successfully sue white men to get her son released from slavery, though it's possible there were other cases that researchers are unaware of. Delivering the speech to a crowd at the Universalist Old Stone Church in Akron for the Ohio Women's Rights Convention, she famously drew on the hardships she faced while she was enslaved, and asked the audience why her humanity and the humanity of other enslaved black people was not seen the same way as the humanity of white Americans. That space is now officially titled the Sojourner Truth Legacy Plaza and the United Way of Summit and Medina counties. Hundreds gathered for the unveiling on Wednesday. Created by Akron native and artist Woodrow Nash, it shows Truth standing tall, holding a book, and the monument itself sits on top of an impala lily, the national flower of Ghana, where Truth's father was able to trace his heritage. There are additional stone pillars around the space featuring her quotes, and which also partly reflect the industrial side of Akron at the time she would have lived. Dang, following up took a lot of our time. Okay, honeys, I guess I will save the rest of this week's stories for our June honey drop. I hope to catch you all soon. Take care of yourselves and prepare to be amazed by what we have coming at you later this week. This podcast was created, produced, written, hosted, edited, and fact-checked by Master's graduate Celia Bugno. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite streaming platforms as well as your social medias.